right, good. Oh, yeah.
You want to call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thanks for coming out, everybody. We'll start with the approval of the agenda. Anything else, Dan, to add?
No.
Nope. Tim, besides what we have on here? Okay. Ryan?
No.
Okay. Entertain a motion to approve as presented.
I'll make that motion.
I'm sorry, wait. We do have one addition.
Oh.
A2K events permit. That was in your packet. The Legion's having a little thing on Saturday. They're going to close the side street for a couple hours, so that's added to the consent agenda.
I'll still make the motion.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Do I have a second?
Second.
You all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda. Any questions on the consent agenda for administration or comments, Tim?
I just had one comment. So, this Christine DeLima is an employee at the liquor store,
I was just gonna ask.
and the liquor manager is recommending that she have a two-step increase, which would put her at 2020. It's based on performance and also based on the competitive market. Certainly if the council, typically we don't do that, but that is the recommendation from the liquor store manager as part of the review that she did.
What's the difference from one step versus two step?
Check that right now. No.
Because that was one of the questions I was just gonna
Sure,
ask.
no, I thought you might have a question about that, so let's see here. Current pay scale for that job, and she was part-time for a long time, she became full-time, I think, in 2020. Okay, she's currently at 1894, the next step would be 1956, and then the step that's being requested would be step 5, which is 2020. She indicated she felt that it's, she wants her to be competitive, so that was her reasoning.
So it's about $1.25 increase.
Right.
It'd be
But if we went
60
one step, it'd be 64.
62 cents, and then it would be another
64.
Yeah, 64 cents. So, it's up to you.
So they're already looking at least one step.
Right. I'm fine with that. With the competitor, you can go to any liquor store in Rochester and get more than that, so.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to highlight
Yep,
that. That was all I
nope,
had.
thank you.
Because that was
Appreciate
a
it.
question we...
Anything else? Okay, entertain a motion to approve.
Make the motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thanks, Mel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Visitors of the council, the Smith presentation. You are up.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for giving a few minutes of your time tonight. Packets here for you all. All right. So first of all, thank you so much for your support of Smith over the years. We greatly appreciate it. Everything I say here tonight is only possible because of contributors such as yourselves. And really, I would just like to, it's been a couple of years since we presented in person to you, so I just want to go over what we've been doing, let you know about a couple upcoming opportunities maybe you should be aware of. All right, does that sound good? Everybody's familiar with the generals of Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, right? Okay, perfect. So as an update then, we continue to really focus on entrepreneurship, early childhood support, and community vitality. And then also we're still in a pandemic, so we have been playing a role to help with that. Typically, we give out $5 to $6 million annually to our region, our 20 counties that we serve. In addition to that 5 or 6 annually, we give out a total of over $20 million in relief efforts. A lot of that was through partnerships with DEED and other organizations like that. So I'll give you a highlight of some of those impacts as I go through those 3 areas as well. So as far as entrepreneurship, we continue to be a lender first and foremost, so please do know if you know someone who's looking to expand or start a business, we are an option. Even if we're just a small part of a package, we're able to provide one-on-one technical assistance, which we found can really be a game changer for an entrepreneur. Also, we do have a food peer network client who is actually here from Casson as well. We've been growing our work in local foods. That's something that's really unique within our region, and especially this sort of area of, as basically here and over through the bluffs. So that's really exciting, and what these networks do is they bring entrepreneurs together and they get to learn from people who have like-minded industries and values, and we've seen a lot of great outcomes come from that. So it's really exciting. As far as the pandemic goes, we were able to provide 8 $10,000 grants to Casson businesses here through our partnership again with Deed. So that's a very quick overview of what we've been doing in the past couple of years in that area. Something to look out for is, I actually think it's this week or next week, we're going to open up another round of our Prosperity Initiative program. So that's really focused on minority entrepreneurs. For us, minority means BIPOC, women, and veteran people. So this could be, it could be anybody from somebody who has an established store to somebody who has an Etsy shop to, you never know. I mean, it's amazing how many businesses are actually operating out of homes right now. So I really do highly encourage you to spread the word on that program. It's a mentoring program for 6 months. They'll receive one-on-one support. And we've seen a lot of great outcomes from this. Actually, we have 2 board members who went through this program currently. And one of them went from a very small Mankato business, and she's now actually going to be statewide. And she really credits that success to her partnership with Smith in this program. So that's one great opportunity you guys can look forward to. We also have our Inclusive and Equitable Communities Grant coming up here in September, and that is really about uplifting voices in your community, making sure everybody's heard, and also, again, with more of an entrepreneurial tint of making sure all entrepreneurs have the resources they need to be successful. And that's a $20,000 grant. Okay, I'll move on to early childhood support then. In that area, really our goal is to make sure all of our kiddos are ready to learn when entering kindergarten. We're also in a child care shortage issue nationwide. What we've been doing is really focusing on providers, providing resources for providers. You'll see in that very large packet of a lot of stuff, your school district is actually highlighted as our early childhood success story over the past couple of years. We have a great partnership with Casson Mantorville Schools, especially their early childhood area. In the past couple of years, they've actually received over $30,000 just through early childhood funding, and they've also received some other funding as well. And those dollars are going towards creating slots for kids, creating space for them to learn, increasing their programming, increasing their capacity to make sure our kids have the quality care that they need to be successful. Beyond that partnership, we also were able to help another home-based provider. I hope you all are aware, but in case you're not, we still have a contract with Jeff Andrews. He's a consultant who is just a whiz in this area. He will work for free with a home-based provider. He has worked with your school district. He can work at the community level to help you think about creatively, how do we address our child care shortage? And he even has worked at the county level in LeSueur County. So please do spread the word on him. He can help with anything from licensing to curriculum, all the way up to, again, those larger county issues. And I can send you his direct contact information as well if you'd like.
Great.
Beyond that, we are going to be rolling out another series of trainings. Last sort of winter and fall, we hosted 35 trainings that were Develop Approved for child care providers. This means they're going to get those continuing education credits they need to stay in the field. That's one of our big pushes. We need people to stay in the field so we can address this shortage. And that, again, is free of charge. We had over 1,000 providers take advantage of that in the last round, and 35 of them were from sort of the Dodge County area. So that's really exciting to see. We're going to be rolling out another series of trainings here, actually, I think in September coming up, which is actually not that far away. We're already almost halfway through July. It's crazy. So please keep an eye out for that. And then, of course, we are going to have another early childhood grant round coming up, and I'm sure your school district already knows about that. So, any questions on early child care? Or else I have one more area to cover. So community vitality, that's very broad. Really the thrust of this program is we are a fiscal host for community foundations. Do you guys have a community foundation in Casson?
Not currently, no.
Not really. Something, if it should come up, we do not charge our community foundations a fee. We help them get started with incentives. We are the fiscal host, meaning we do all of that sort of back office headache work. So then volunteers can come together, they raise funds, and then they would decide where those dollars go in the future. And it's really a way to create sustainability within your community, also more community ownership and ideology, and it's been very successful. We actually just started one in Lonsdale, and Pine Island is potentially starting here soon as well. So. Also, we have a small town grant program, which your school district received another $20,000 through the past couple of years. We help them with the grants for distance learning and then also for a community wellness initiative. So keep an eye out for that. Unfortunately, that grant round did just close this year, but we can accept multiple applications from communities. It's $10,000. Honestly, it's really about how can you spur engagement in your community? What projects have been sitting on the shelf that you guys know all too well? There's not enough funds to do everything. How can you get them moving forward? There is a slant on, we do really push for community engagement, but Arlington made a great case on how a dog park would really stimulate community engagement. We've done marketing for communities. We've done welcoming programs. So it's really all over the board because every community is unique. So that will be opening up again in June, unfortunately, but keep that in mind. That's a very quick overview. I know I talk fast. Do you guys have any questions? No? Yeah.
Well, just a comment, because you did mention it, is I thought Smith was funding the Rethos Downtown Assessment
Yes.
grant or program that we're one of the...
Oh, you are. The downtown revitalization.
Yes.
Yep, we're sort of funneling the host for those dollars. Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
Just in terms of projects, you mentioned the school a few times. Is there anything else that Dodge County you've had in the Casson area that you'd like to highlight?
Well, we have done a lot in Hayfield as well. They just received a small town grant to help with, that one hasn't been announced yet. In the past, they've also received one, for PPE equipment for COVID. Dodge County Faith in Action has received a number of grants as well, and actually recently currently was another COVID relief effort grant. Yeah, that's a couple of highlights. Manorville has received a lot of support as well, especially through small town grant program. One was to help with a historical downtown initiative to push that forward, which is really great. Yeah. Keeping me on my toes, Tim, geez.
Well, I haven't seen you in a while, so it's good to see you.
I know.
Let's see, what else can I ask? So childcare, in this area, it's not as huge of a factor, but
Right.
I know that there's still a lot of demand. What trends are you seeing with that? Is it improving at all, or are we still struggling with that so much?
Overall, our feel of it is improving currently. And you guys are in a great space because of your school system, for sure. But there are concerns on if there will be more of an issue in about 5-10 years. The concern is this population, most people who are doing this career, they're aging. We're going to have a big retirement shift here in the next 5 to 10 years. So that's something we're still working on trying to address, but I would say in the short term, we're doing better. We're doing everything we can to get people in the field. We're actually offering scholarships if somebody wants to get into the field. We're working on it.
Any other questions, comments?
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and
Thank
again,
you.
thank you so much for your support. And I know you guys downsized your support as the pandemic hit, so whatever level you guys can give at, we greatly appreciate it.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, out of the mayor's report, we got a request from IRIS, which that's in your packet, Infants Remembered in Silence. It's a national nonprofit, so we have a proclamation in the packet.
That's right. Would you like me to read it, or go through it?
Yeah.
It'd be basically designating October 15th, 2022 as Pregnancy and Infant Loss Remembrance Day. So just looking to see if the mayor is open to that, or if you'd, designate that this time.
Sure.
Okay. And what we'll do is before that date, we'll have an actual proclamation for you to sign and everything, so.
Okay. Yeah, and if you look in there, the sample, so you'll have that for October, but,
That's right.
We do have people in our community that have children that have died from SIDS, illness, accidents, that type of thing, so we'll address that when you bring that back. Thank you. Planning and zoning, do you want to go move that up?
Yeah, why don't we, since Mr. Akrapovic, right,
Here, yep. So we'll move number 3 up to 1 under the P and Z and do that first. So we've got, that's in your packet, so F1, 3.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we'll
Oh, I'm
talk
sorry, yeah.
about is in context of the interim use permit.
Okay.
So the interim use permit is something that the Planning and Zoning Board reviewed to a large degree on Monday night. We had a lot of good comments from folks, and you can kind of see what it is it's a potential change to add this to our kind of toolbox of tools that the planning and zoning folks can use when they have businesses of this nature. After we received the application, we found that a lot of other communities have this interim use permit. And what it is it enables us to take action in a little bit more expeditious way if a business situation changes, as opposed to a CUP. You know, a CUP requires a little bit more of a legal process that the council may be familiar with. We've had to pull those in the past. So basically, what we're doing is looking at amending the zoning code by adding this interim use permit, and then there's a resolution for summary publication. The Planning and Zoning Board, after they reviewed it, they did recommend that this be changed or added to the code. I don't know, Dan, if there's anything else you wanted to add?
The biggest thing the plan and zoning liked about it was you can set it to a time base, so if somebody's got a permit and it's only good for 3 years, you can set it for a 3-year term unless they can renew their permit. So it's a lot, they like the fact that when it was done, it's done. And if they sell the house, it's done. It doesn't stay with the property.
That's probably the biggest change between the CUP, which typically goes with the property, and this. And Brad, I don't know if you want to highlight anything else out of Brad did a great job with his staff report writing things up, so. Oh, he's on mute, Brad. Brad, you're on mute. Brad, you're on mute.
Is he muted on our end?
I don't know, is he muted on our end? Just a second, Brad.
I don't think,
Wait a second, Brad, I don't know if are you on mute? You weren't on mute before. I heard you before the meeting started. I don't know what's going on. But we did hear him before the meeting started, so nothing should have changed there, I don't know.
You can hear us, so.
Yeah. Oh,
You guys are muted on the bottom right.
yeah, maybe hit that on the bottom right there, Linda.
Thanks. I heard something better.
That was through Brandon's computer.
Jeez, we don't need two of you, Brandon, we don't need two engineers in the room, one.
No, we don't need that. No, we don't need it.
One is too much, what are you talking about?
My meeting, so I was trying to get in there to see if I could change the setting.
I'm here, can you hear me?
Oh,
Yeah.
there we
There we
go.
go.
Okay. The only thing I was going to emphasize with the interim use permit is the most important thing is that you can set a termination with an interim use permit, whereas with a conditional use permit, you cannot. So, that's really the big thing.
Okay.
It goes through the same process in planning and zoning, so.
Correct. We'll follow the same process as the conditional use permit, so there will still be a public hearing. Literally, the only thing that changes is you don't record it on the property, it doesn't stay with the property.
So they did think it was a better option for a business like this, a home-based business sort of thing, and that's kind of that's why it's the first step is, I think we're looking to have the council authorize that and then look at this application, because potentially we would want to approve that as a interim use as opposed to a CUP.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Anything?
If this is approved, what happens with existing home-based businesses that have never gone through this process but would need to?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, similar, and actually the police chief's here, lucky guy. He's, he has a list of these other type of businesses that actually have these similar permits, right, Josh? You get informed about them. We were not aware there were other ones of this nature, and so I appreciate the resident who's applied for it actually letting us know, because obviously we prefer to know, because that just is, it's more open and public and transparent. You know, we did have a large number of folks who came on Monday who got to ask questions about it, and I think for the most part, a lot of their concerns were allayed, you know, but that's why we do it, because we want people to be in the know. So I don't know if there's something, Josh, I don't know if you'd speak to that at all. Do we go and talk to these folks, or what do you think would be appropriate there?
I don't know what they're doing for a business, if they're actually operating out of the home, or if they're going out to like gun shows, they'd also need the license. So, one of them was our former police chief. He lives outside of Casson now, but he used to live in Casson. And when he had the license in Casson, he had to claim like his kitchen table was his place of business, and they came and inspected that. And then they have to have a safe for to store the guns.
You know, so I guess that'd be something if the council has, direction for staff. We can reach out to folks. Do we do it for every home occupation or not? You know, I don't know, because this is, obviously, we're speaking about firearms in this case, but go ahead, Brad.
If I could just clarify one thing. So in our zoning code today, we have two different references. We have home occupations and home-based businesses. In simplest terms, to distinguish between the two, the home-based business is a use where the types of business that they do is noticeable. So you might have people coming to the house, you might have storage of stuff, you might have, more deliveries than a typical residential unit might have. If it's a home occupation where, it was mentioned for the gun sales, for example, where they go somewhere else, but their place of their office, if you will, is their kitchen table, and there's no real evidence that it's a business. People aren't coming to the house, there aren't accepted deliveries to the house, then that's a home occupation and we don't require any permitting for that. So the real thing that we're talking about here are the home businesses, and ones that have been processed before this, where there's actual something going on that brings people to neighborhood, we typically would have a conditional use permit for that. Those are unaffected, those still exist today. It's really going forward, we would have this new tool to be able to process things that have, for example, the FFL, the Federal Firearms License, those expire. And so with the interim use permit, when that expires, the interim use permit goes away. And so think of a similar licensing activity. When that license expires or that business ceases, then that interim use permit goes away. I don't know if that helps answer the question.
It does, but since the conditional use permit runs with the land and not the individual, that's where my concern is more based.
It's possible that one of the conditions that was placed on it could be something similar, and it's still just called a conditional use permit, although it would have some similar characteristics of it being interim. If the condition said, terminates automatically upon losing the license or no longer maintaining a license, it's possible that current or existing conditional use permits might have some of those kinds of conditions included in them.
So in that case, we would do some investigation of it, and if we find one that no longer meets the conditions of the conditional use permit, then we go through a process to revoke the conditional use permit. Correct, Melanie?
Yes, that's correct.
Thanks.
Okay.
That answers my
Yeah,
question.
so I think
Yeah.
that's kind of where it's at.
Okay, anything, Ryan, any questions, Ryan, or comments? Thanks, Chief. All right, so step one is the interim use permit, the resolution for summary publication, correct?
Approving the ordinance.
Oh, the ordinance first, yep.
Then approving this under
Okay, so F1 to A1, the ordinance, so I'll entertain a motion to approve amending the ordinance.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Dan, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Mel. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And then to publicate that, resolution for summary publication, entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Mel, do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Ryan, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And then now on to the, home-based business app, request.
Absolutely. So you've got a request for council action sheet in there, kind of detailing a little bit of what we've talked about already. Applicants looking to have a home-based business that sells firearms, not ammunition, out of their home. Planning and zoning reviewed this. in conjunction with authorizing the interim use permit, they did have a positive recommendation for that. The applicant is here as well. If there are questions, I'm sure he'd be willing to answer those.
Dan, any questions, comments? You already went through the...
I went through it, most of the people that came for the open meeting had just questions and concerns, and I think most of them were answered. There was a couple that we were waiting on tonight. If it was something to do with the hours, Tim, and what was I can't remember exact, but...
Well, including your packet, you do have the conditions that were recommended. And so those are ones that certainly can be amended. I think the hours that were suggested at the planning and zoning were between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m.
Yeah.
as to not interrupt the residential nature of the neighborhood. And the applicant indicated that he felt that would be sufficient for him at this time. So, I don't know, Brad, if there's anything else you want to highlight on this application, otherwise, we can go through those conditions as per the planning commission's recommendation.
Yeah, I think the planning commission just had a couple additions and modifications that they made. That was one of them, was the hours. There was a discussion about, can you modify the hours so that they don't coincide with school bus drop-off and pickup? And we didn't add that, but I mean, that is something that we could add, where we simply say, gun sales may occur between 9 and 6 p.m., which is what we currently have in there, and shall not occur, 1 hour or 30 minutes on either side of scheduled school bus pickup and drop-off. We can put something in to that effect. The other condition that was added was that the permit should be reviewed on an annual basis for compliance with the said conditions. And so that's that annual review basis that, we might see often in conditional use permits, and we can certainly add that as, we've added that in as a condition in the resolution for consideration. The other thing Planning Commission was curious about was the enforcement on the permit, and just to hear from the police chief on this. And so that was the only other comment that I recall from the Planning Commission meeting. And so I don't know if the chief police has any more comment to add about these gun sales.
There's a question about the FFL license, or enforcement we would take?
Thought it was something to do with, they wanted to make sure the FFL, if it got revoked, or how would we know, the city?
That we would be notified, yeah.
So we would be notified, so the planning, zoning, and the council could take action.
I do not know that. We've never been notified of a license that's been revoked. There is a public website where when they go to renew, if you want to do a yearly renewal, the public can check. So it's open for anybody.
Okay. That was, because we just wanted to know if there was a way, that we added, we would check it yearly, but we just thought if you were notified or not, that's why we were asking, because it was asked.
We've never been notified in the past, but I don't know if one's been revoked, so I can't tell if they would notify us. But anybody can look per month who has a license.
I think that'd be
So we can see that.
enough information for...
And that's on us to have the follow-up procedure
Yes.
for the permit. Yep, okay.
Right, so there are three instances where that would be checked. One is that annual review that we might do. We could do it annually, and then part of that was we ask the applicant to provide evidence that it hasn't been revoked, it's in good standing. Every 3 years, I believe it's renewed, and that condition number 5 is essentially requiring them to submit that renewal notice to us, that they've renewed it. And then the third would be, if something happens, part of our investigation to follow up on it would be validating it. So those 3 instances would be where we would be checking it.
Okay. Thanks, Brad. Any questions or comments, Dan, besides what we just
Nope,
said?
I'm good.
I guess I'm not in favor of adding the school bus times. That just takes 2 hours out of the day of, they're approved from 9 to 6, and then we're gonna say an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening that they wouldn't be able to do business. That doesn't make sense to me.
Actually, it could take 3 hours if there is a preschool bus.
Sure, it could take a third of the day out of the thing, so I don't...
Based on the feedback we got, it sounded like, you're gonna also see in there an average of no more than 1 customer a day.
Right,
So we're not anticipating it having a substantial impact. In fact, it's possible that neighbors might not have even noticed this to a large degree, although we did have that discussion on Odd Buddy Day as well, that neighbors tend to notice everything in some neighborhoods. So, not necessarily a bad thing either for the kids and everything. But I do think we want to try not to make it, more
work than it's,
strict than it needs to
Yeah.
be, I guess.
All right, Ryan, any questions, comments?
seems pretty legit.
No, good.
Nothing else?
So, you have the resolution in front of us. I'll make a recommendation to approve the resolution as written.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Dan. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Opposed? Resolution passes. That's
And
it.
this is as a interim.
Yep, just to go with the interim use permit we just did before that, so. Okay, on to the next thing. Thanks, guys, for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Go back up to number 1 there, Shooty comp plan.
Sure. We've got the Shooty comp plan, a change, and then zoning change. The council is very familiar with this project. Mr. Shooty is starting to move forward on some changes that he'd like to have. Basically, we're looking at changing the comp plan to change the zoning and the use of this property. Right now, it's in development holding, so we'd be going to more of a commercial use. He's looking at putting a commercial structure in there. As I said, you've got the staff report. There were not a lot of objections or any questions on it. It seems like a good use for commercial corridor on Highway 57. It matches the similar type of business that's just to the south. We do think that a larger piece of his property will probably end up being residential, but it's gonna be more on the west side. So, Planning Commission, they reviewed it. They didn't really have any questions. There was some debate back and forth about timelines and things like that, but I want folks to know that, we're doing everything we can as staff to try and help Mr. Shooty with this moving forward.
Any questions for planning and zoning or Tim?
Brad, is there anything else you wanted to highlight on that?
Nope, if they have questions, I can help answer questions, but otherwise, I think you're good.
Okay. Anything, Ryan or Mel? No. Okay. Then the first one is to approve the resolution amending the future land use designation to retail service commercial.
Make the motion.
Thanks, Ryan. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Dan, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And the next one is to approve an ordinance rezoning the subject property to C3 Highway Commercial District. And I'll make that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Dan. All in favor?
Aye?
Opposed? Motion carries. And then to approve the summary publication for the approval of the resolution.
Make the motion to approve.
Thanks, Ryan. Second.
I'll second.
Thanks, Mel. All in favor?
Aye?
Motion carries. Thank you. Number 4, Vale subdivision, final PUD and final plat.
All right, another exciting project. Excuse me. You've got the final plat exhibits in there, so you can kind of see what there is. Not a lot of changes from the last packet. We'll highlight that Outlot D was added to the south side of Highway 14, just for clarity's sake. That was discussed, but that's that small sort of remnant parcel from when the highway was changed. But it doesn't affect our project. So you end up having Outlot A, which is the residual property on the site for development itself. You've got Outlot B, which is the considered floodplain area, and then Outlot C, which is being held over for park development in the future. So that's just to make that clear. And then you've got the request for council action. Basically, we're just asking council to determine any questions they have and then approve a final PUD plat tonight. So.
Any comments from council? Dan's been through this a couple times, so we saw at the last meeting, the preliminary, so. Anything else, Ryan?
No.
That you have? Mel, anything that jumps out at you? All right. I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Dan. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Mel. All in favor?
Aye? Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Thanks, Planning and Zoning, for putting the time in to get that ready, and thanks, Brad, for your work on that, too. Appreciate it. I think that'll be it.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Brad. Have a good night.
Thanks. Have a good night, Brad. Appreciate it. Yep. Excuse me. EDA transition plans, number 5.
All right, I'm just sharing this it's a committee report, sort of. We did hire a new staff person who is handling the EDA brief, and will hopefully be handling some more of our planning portion going forward in the future. Ian Albers, he started on Monday, and he's going to be introduced to the council at their next council meeting. He had another engagement this evening, but I've asked him to come, and just wanted to sort of show you what, when we do intros for new employees, we do try to do that, kind of a showing of how things work for them, and some of the ongoing activities that the EDA is working on, and he'll be working on, is the Rethos downtown assessment, crop science investigation, relocation expansion. He's going to keep working with Mr. Warschauer and the Historic School, the sand companies, Hamilton multi-phase. We've got a representative from Hamilton here, so hopefully he's excited. Back from his vacation, he's here to put some, midnight oil in or something or other. The fire hall project, then Main Street, we know next year is going to be impacted more on Main Street with the closures on Main Street and 34. And you can read the other items on there. But just wanted to give you a heads up on what he's going to be working on in the short term. And then, as I said, long term, we're hoping to transition some of our planning that Brad does, hopefully a little bit of that over to our in-house planner to start with. So he is pretty raw. He's a new college graduate. The hiring pools, as I indicated at our last meeting, are not particularly deep, especially with those kind of specializations. But he's got a good attitude. He seems very positive, and he certainly tried to hit the ground running this week. So.
Okay. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it. On to old business, number 1, ballot language.
Sure. The council had asked that we look at some ballot language options for the potential fire hall project for the ballot this fall. So these are 3 options, and I appreciate the EMS committee reviewed these, and they had recommended option 2 for clarity's sake. There are pluses and minuses, I think, to each of the options in terms of the way it would be done, but I do think option 1 and 2 are probably the most transparent in terms of how they would work for people when they're just reading the question. These would be on the ballot in November. The county's asked us to have a final proposal of them in early August, so it can be included on the ballots that are generated, that are printed in September for the November ballot. So I'll just go through both of those recommended options. Option 1, as I said, option 3 was not recommended by EMS. Shall the city of Casson, Minnesota be authorized to finance the construction of a new fire hall by imposing an additional property tax of 2%? An affirmative vote would improve the tax until a total is raised of up to $7 million, plus amounts needed to pay for interest and issuance of bond costs issued to finance the project, or for 40 years, whichever comes first. Or option 2, shall the city of Casson, Minnesota be authorized to issue bonds in an amount not exceeding the amount of $7 million for the purposes of designing, constructing, equipping, and furnishing a new fire station. This measure would be funded by an estimated property tax of 10 cents per $1,000 of assessed valuation, would cost the owner of a $300,000 home about $2.50 a month, roughly $30 per year. So that was the one that was kind of recommended by the EMS. I will note that number is not finalized, so the language is not 100% final. It I have to go through with Nancy and make sure that everything lines up for what we need to fund. We know that the bond payments, part of that would be paid for via the natural gas franchise fee that Mr. Rubani highlighted in our work session. And part of it would be taken from debt service that is expiring, that would be rolled over into a new payment. And Nancy has been working on this. She's got a pretty good grasp, I think, of where she wants to go with and that sort of thing. Nancy, is there anything you wanted to highlight on that?
No, I mean, we'll just finesse it the closer we get, especially in light of, which interest rate, who knows what. So
right.
We'll look at that.
There is one thing I didn't notice until just now. Do we want to mention, because we specifically say designing, constructing, equipping, and furnishing a new fire station, do we want to mention community room?
That's a good question for the council.
It's part of the project, but
Yeah.
I would say so, yeah.
Okay.
Fire station and community.
Room.
Okay, so equipping, furnishing a new fire station and community...
I don't want to say community center, so it should
No,
probably
Which
be community room.
includes a community room,
Okay, including a community room?
something like that, whatever
All right.
that language would be.
I mean, that's how we've been referring to it thus far, so I
Sure.
think for the sake
I
of
mean, it will have
consistency.
it is a substantial cost on the project. So, I mean, I think that's fair to say that it's it's probably about $1 million of the project is gonna
Right.
go towards that part of it, so.
Or publicly available community room, or, you
Right.
know, however you want to phrase it, so that people understand the intent behind including it.
Yep. And I like option 2 the best out of the, you guys recommended that, so that's my opinion anyway. Dan, any?
I agree, I like that when it lays down more of what it's gonna cost people, so they,
Yeah, you're not using a percentage, you're using dollar amounts, and people can relate to a dollar amount
Yes.
instead of a percentage.
and they
I mean, I
can,
do think the nice thing about that is that folks they can figure out their own kind of idea too, based on, you know, they know what their valuation is gonna be on their home. So, I mean, because it's gonna vary, somebody is gonna have more or less, but it's gonna, you know, be based on that, so.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, so what I'll do is, I will take I'll include some language, I'll revise that language on exactly how it says, so it'll be something along the lines of including a community room or a public community room or something like that, and I'll bring that back to you just for final A-OK, and then that'll be the language that we send up to the county for inclusion on the ballot.
and then when, that you're calling it the community room, just for the next meeting, list what that purpose of that community room is, so people know. I mean, what are we using it for? If we're spending $1 million on it, what are they gonna get out of it?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is I do want to make sure that this stays,
Well, I wouldn't
not
put it in
agreed,
this.
but I mean it.
I wouldn't put it in this, I just mean
Okay.
it's for information for when people ask.
Okay.
Because everybody right now assumed, when I talk to them, they're assuming fire hall. They're not assuming community room, that I've talked to. So if that's there, I wanna have an answer, so I can tell them what that.
Well, I guess the question would be, so I know that the ICS folks are working with the fire department on generating some materials that the fire department would like to be able to hand out, for example, a national night out that's coming up in a couple of weeks. I mean, that's definitely something we can provide feedback to them, that would be a
Yeah.
good item to include, is what, I mean, and I guess the community room right now is envisioning for a certain number of meetings that could be held there, birthday parties, celebrations of some nature. I think that's kind of what we're looking at. I don't know,
And
Mel,
and a
Ryan,
place
if you think
like
of
for
something else.
seniors, if they wanted to get together for card games or that kind of usage as well.
Well, and that's maybe maybe a different discussion. A larger discussion is, how does that develop if we do see some more substantial interest from, you know, right now we've got seniors mostly seniors, that play cards out like the library.
Right.
How will that work in terms of, do we, you know, if we authorize that space for them to utilize, you know, access, things like those have to be figured out, so.
And I did bring that up at the EMS meeting, that was, I know how we limit access to the remainder of the library when that room is used after hours, and I wanted to make sure they were aware that that was a component of the design in this as well.
Sure.
So that the fire station, you don't have free roam
Right.
of the building.
I mean, I think, you know, there's a lot of ifs, obviously. If this is approved by the voters, if we move forward with it,
Correct.
that's definitely something we'd have to determine, because, you know, for example, there's a kitchen right there.
Right.
Do they have access to the kitchen?
That
How
was-
formal do we make this? You know, does it become a de facto senior center kind of a thing? And so, good question, you
And
know,
if,
something
and if
that
you
I
have
can
access
definitely...
to the kitchen, we gotta make sure there's rules to that too, but I mean, that's
Correct,
down the
but-
road, but.
The kitchen, having access to the kitchen was part of the reason for including this room, because you cannot have food and drink at the library.
Right.
And so the idea of having this room that's available for rent or for use by the public is that there is an available kitchen
Right.
that can be rented or used as part of this facility.
All right, well, I'll let the folks at ICS know that they need to include some information about that.
Okay. Thank you, and we'll have that at the next meeting for approval.
Sounds good.
Because, Tim, just for clarity,
Sure.
that's why I asked about the service window that
Sure.
they're putting in between the kitchen and the common area.
Hallway
as
instead of
opposed to, correct.
on the room itself, right?
That's why I brought that up.
No, that's a good question. Okay, and then I'll just run right into the next thing, if you don't mind,
Nope,
Mr. Mayor.
that's perfect.
We've got the, I'd say, near final version of the fire hall plan. So the EMS had a long meeting last week to discuss a number of parts of the project, some larger and some smaller, but they're all important, and I think it's interesting to see where we're at. You know, we're at a good spot. I think with the design, it's, you know, it's got materials, as the council asked, to be shown to the public. That was really the goal, was to show what it might look like, the kind of the fixtures and the style of it and that sort of thing. So one change from the color pictures that are included there is that the fire department is recommending that the The rear doors match the front doors. So the rear doors are that dark color with a one row of windows as opposed to the glass doors which are included in the picture there. So that will change, and it'll reduce the cost substantially. Each one of those specialized doors is, I think, upwards of $10,000. So putting a regular door in there will reduce that cost by a large degree. So other than that, just wanted to let you see where that's at and how it looks, and, you know, however that ends up being, just, we're ready one way or the other, so.
Perfect. Thank you. Rural development items.
Just included some rural development items, updates, as I said, they kind of all fit into this fire department sort of thing. The feasibility report, you know, just wanted you to know, we're moving forward with feasibility report on it. We were approved for that phase 1, so this is all part of that phase 2 kind of, application that we'll be putting together, so. And it's just pending the ability for us to make sure that we have this bond issuance in a timely manner.
Okay, thank you.
Do we need to talk about the public notification requirements, the second thing in that group?
Sure, and I've got that in there. Part of it is, you know, just to let you know that the nice thing about this, you know, having it on the ballot is that it'll help us meet those requirements.
Okay.
So, you know, this just runs through how they might typically do it. And because we're holding on the ballot, it'll allow us to get that feedback without having an issue, so.
Great. Okay. New business, SRO agreement, the ZED agreement.
So, I'll invite the police chief to come up. He's been working on this a lot, and EMS did review these two agreements, and they had a few questions, but as members of the council have followed this discussion with the media has gotten involved a little bit, and different folks from the public, but I think that right now we have these agreements before us. They were already approved at the school board, and Josh is going to talk about the specifics, I think.
They're pretty similar to past agreements. Zed is requesting a SRO for 8 hours, and Cam is requesting one for 40 hours a week. We do have 2 fully trained SROs, so that was one question that came up. So our officer, Sergeant Peck, is gonna do Zed during his regular patrol shifts, and Officer Kazel is gonna cover the schools like he has in the past.
Any questions for the chief at all?
There was one, the funding changed a little bit too, so Zed's gonna pay for 20% of a position, and Cam's gonna pay for 60, so it's gonna be 80% total versus the 65% it was before. But obviously, we're gonna be using one of our officers a little bit more at Zed. Then in the future, when we add another officer, we can have some flexibility there.
And so is that a revenue neutral proposal, Josh, or is it gonna cost the city more?
It'll cost you less.
Zed's picking up.
Not substantial, but
More of a
Well, we also cut our percentage that we're getting from the school.
Right.
So,
Their 20%'s gonna make, more than make up for them. So. All right, any other questions, for the chief at all?
Nothing else really changed.
No.
well, the biggest clarification, that we had a meeting with some representatives from the school board, and, you know, the idea that someone other than the police chief would govern the police officer who is acting that role, it's not, you know, not able to be done that way. It's required to be under the police chief, so just for some clarification's sake, so.
And I think that was very well understood by the time the end of our meeting was over, so. Perfect. Thanks for your time on that. Appreciate it. Any other questions or comments? Okay, entertain a motion to approve the SRO agreement.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I suppose we gotta do the ZED separate, so entertain a motion to approve the ZED SRO agreement.
Make the motion.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Mel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Transfer of funds. Go ahead,
Yeah, I can
Nancy.
cover this briefly. At the last council meeting, the project was awarded for the Safe Routes to School. At that time, it was mentioned that there had been discussion about the funding for the additional dollars. The grant was awarded in 2018, so we know just with the passage of time that costs will increase, but we also know with our inflationary environment for construction that the costs have increased much more than we thought. So we have been budgeting some amounts from city budget for 4 years. The school will be contributing about $60,000. The grant is $300,000, and then the shortfall needs to be made up by the city. So it was proposed to use the stabilization fund, and that's what this is requesting, is that we transfer the funds from the stabilization fund to the Safe Routes to School construction fund to pay for the balance of the project.
Okay. Any questions for Nancy? Appreciate you putting that together for us. Okay, I'll make the motion to approve the transfer of funds. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks again, Nancy. Appreciate it. Administrators report.
You've got my report in the packet. Not a lot of other items to highlight. A lot of busy days here, meetings and things like that, a lot of stuff going on. We did get our ARPA funding, our second half funding, so that's good. We did recapitalize, the EDA recapitalized the revolving loan fund, so there were some funds that were available for that, so we have about $100,000 in that account. Other than that, I was just going to mention the Power Blinks. I've got some information in there. So, they're always working on reliability, but we did have that issue where we had a contractor bore into one of the lines out to Comet Acres, so we had some issues that have gone to the league's insurance, so we'll be dealing with that claim. So I appreciate the staff out there, especially Charlie, putting a lot of extra time kind of babysitting the sewer plant when it was running on manual kind of. So really appreciate that. Good job from him. I'm glad he's got this week off, so it's good. A break. Any questions from anybody? I'd be glad to take those.
You said you turned it into insurance. That doesn't come under the company that board?
Our insurance company will take care of that.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yep.
It seemed to be the best way to do it. We are dealing with a local business. I mean, their insurance is intended for protecting them in the same way us. So I think that in the past, that's been the most effective way, is to have the league go after them. So.
Sure. I was just curious.
Yep, no, good question. All right, thanks, Tim. Engineers report.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. One item on the agenda tonight, but I just wanted to touch base on two items. We did mention Safe Routes to School tonight. If you remember, that was conditional approval of full approval from MnDOT, so I just got that letter from MnDOT, so we're fully cleared on MnDOT side of things to move forward. So we're working with the contractor to start a pre-construction meeting, so that'll be kicking off here shortly. Secondly, 57, just a quick update. There's some talk about, or has been some talk, or the project schedule was after the county fair to switch over north of 7th. That's probably going to happen towards the end of the month, so just be looking for that in the next couple of months as they shift to that next stage of construction. 7th then will be knocked out, if you will, and closed down, so then mainly use 1st. There may be some access across the project between 1st and 7th, but I think just generally use 1st because that'll remain open. So just want to let the council know that because that time is coming. Obviously, when you see the signs of the road closed, then we'll know, and there'll be a slight adjustment in the detour route. So just wanted to touch base with that on those two projects. So lastly, I guess jumping into what was on the agenda tonight, Vale subdivision, in your council packet is a resolution to award and approve the bid. We did bid that on July 7th, and then actually, tonight, to back up a little bit, we approved the final plat for kind of phase 1, so this is the first phase of the project with the Hamilton Group. And again, Ryan here is here tonight to represent the Hamilton Group if there's any questions. This is kind of moving our project forward with this respect to the public infrastructure and the roadway. So you can see the engineering estimate was about $380,000. Schumacher Excavating was the lowest of 8 bidders, about just under $317,000. So the engineers finally caught up to some of the price increases we've seen in the local bidding environment. So we are ultimately recommending, if you do recommend to enter into contract with Schumacher Excavating for $316,909.40. By passing this resolution, we'll ultimately authorize the mayor and the administrator to enter into contract with the contractor. So schedule-wise, and we talked about it, but basically Hamilton Group's ripping and roaring, ready to go. That we've approved the plat, we'll kind of get the land transfer. They're going to get started right away this fall, and then we're going to do the same, get started on some utility work, probably both be paving parking lots and roadways in the spring, and hopefully be open by this time next year, or maybe even sooner. So that's what we have planned before you. With that, I'll answer any questions they may have.
Perfect. Nice to see something come in under the engineer's estimate.
Telling me. So it's been a long spring for us, so.
I bet.
All over the city, so it's been interesting to say the least, so.
Good. Look forward to getting that started. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the contract with Schumacher Excavating.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thanks, Ryan. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Dan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Appreciate that. Thanks for
it?
the work. Yep, thanks for the update on 57 too. Appreciate it. All right, personnel, we have resignations of firefighter Brad Patton, Alex Gogerbo, and Tony Fearstead. The letters from the chief are in the packet, and Personnel Committee will be getting some exit interview feedback here soon.
That's what I was just gonna ask you about.
Yep.
What are their numbers at right now?
I think 22 after these two are gone, so. So I'll, move to accept the resignations and thank them for their service to the city of Casson for the years, and, looking for a second.
I'll second.
Thanks, Mel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And nothing from the attorney tonight? Perfect. Any questions on the correspondence? Okay, with none, our next meeting is on the 27th at 6 o'clock. We'll see everybody here, and I'll take a motion for adjournment.
Make the motion.
Thanks, Dan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Ryan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate you coming.
The timeline.
Nailed it.